While Denny Hamlin was celebrating an emotional win at Las Vegas on Sunday, a courtroom battle in North Carolina was heating up fast, and what happened next could shake the entire NASCAR garage. On Monday, March 16th, a federal courthouse in Charlotte was packed with some of the biggest names in racing. Joe Gibbs walked in alongside team president Dave Alpern and executive Heather Gibbs. Even Denny Hamlin showed up, sitting quietly in the gallery to watch. On the other side sat Chris Gabehart, with Spire Motorsports co-owner Jeff Dickerson, and their legal teams. This was no ordinary hearing. Judge Susan Rodriguez listened to arguments from three different attorneys: Sarah Hutchinson, representing Joe Gibbs Racing, Kerry Davis for Gabehart, and John Gibbs III for Spire Motorsports. When it was over, the judge leaned heavily toward JGR. She granted them narrowly tailored, expedited discovery against Gabehart, but also allowed reciprocal discovery rights back against JGR. Both sides got something, but JGR walked away with the bigger advantage. In most lawsuits, discovery takes weeks or months. Expedited discovery throws that timeline out completely. It means JGR can begin digging through Gabehart's records immediately. The judge gave both sides until the end of the week to hand everything over, an incredibly fast turnaround in legal terms. To understand why this matters, you need the backstory. Chris Gabehart had been with JGR for over a decade. He started as an engineer, worked his way up to crew chief, and eventually became competition director. He knew exactly how the team operated at every level. Then, earlier this year, Spire Motorsports hired him as their new Chief Motorsports Officer. JGR was furious. On February 19th, they filed suit. Their attorney, Tom Melsheimer, told the court that Gabehart had taken what he called the crown jewels of JGR's operation. The team is claiming more than $8 million in damages, and the evidence is hard to ignore. No one disputes that Gabehart used his personal phone to take photos of his computer screen at JGR and saved more than 200 files into a folder labeled Spire. JGR argues he did this intentionally to avoid detection. Even Gabehart's own legal team admitted he feels embarrassed about it. But his lawyers tell a very different story. They argue JGR has no proof those files were ever shared with Spire, no proof anyone at Spire received them, and no proof they were ever used. In their words, the case is built on speculation, not evidence. At the center of the dispute is a contract clause. Section 6, Paragraph 2 of Gabehart's agreement stated that if his job duties changed significantly and JGR failed to fix the issue within 60 days, his non-compete would shrink to just 1 week, and JGR would owe him $100,000. Gabehart says that's exactly what happened. He kept his title, but claims key decisions, especially involving the number 54 car, were made without his input. He argues his authority was undermined, pushing him to leave. JGR sees it differently. They say Gabehart broke the agreement first by taking confidential files. They fired him for cause on February 9th. But Gabehart's attorneys counter that the firing came 3 months after he signaled his intent to leave, and only after JGR's forensic investigation found no evidence of data being shared. There's also a messy side deal involved. Jeff Dickerson testified that JGR and Spire had an agreement. An employee named Tyler Smith left Spire to join JGR, and in return, Spire was supposed to receive either a JGR employee or a $100,000 payment. According to Dickerson, JGR never followed through. He claims he requested specific employees twice, and both times JGR refused. Dickerson also emphasized that Spire has no interest in JGR's data, noting their technical alliance with Hendrick Motorsports. He even offered JGR access to inspect Spire's systems, an offer JGR declined before filing the lawsuit. In his view, JGR is using litigation to disrupt Spire's operations mid-season. There's also a dispute over timing. A JGR employee claimed Gabehart had discussed a job with Spire as early as October 2025, but both Gabehart and Dan Tauris denied that. Tauris submitted a sworn statement saying no such meeting occurred. Gabehart says his first contact with Spire was a brief call on January 9, 2026. He also strongly rejected claims that his current role overlaps with his old one. Spire already has a full leadership structure, including crew chiefs, a competition director, and technical leadership. He argues his role is fundamentally different. Now, back to what the judge actually ruled. Judge Rodriguez did not give JGR everything. She reviewed all 7 discovery requests individually. She approved access to communications between Gabehart and Spire regarding his hiring, documents related to his new role, and files created between October 2025 and February 2026 tied to Spire. She also allowed limited discovery related to JGR race setups, but narrowed the scope. Terms like strategy and operations were deemed too broad, so both sides agreed to focus on analytics instead. However, she denied some of JGR's broader demands. Requests for communications between Gabehart and other JGR employees about joining Spire were rejected. She also blocked subpoenas to outside figures, including Justin Marks, Todd Meredith, and others connected to different teams. And here's the part many are overlooking. The reciprocal discovery granted to Gabehart could hit JGR hard. His legal team can now examine internal JGR communications, how they interpreted his contract, why they stopped paying him, and how they handled his termination. If JGR mishandled any part of that process, it's about to come to light. The judge also extended the temporary restraining order through March 26th. Gabehart can remain with Spire, but cannot perform duties resembling his former competition director role. Spire posted a $100,000 bond for that order. Meanwhile, JGR is pushing to enforce the full 18-month non-compete. What makes this situation even more volatile is the timing. This isn't happening in the off-season, when teams can quietly manage internal issues. It's unfolding right in the middle of the NASCAR calendar, when every decision, every setup change, and every piece of data can impact race results. If even a fraction of JGR's claims holds weight, it raises serious questions about competitive integrity. Not just for Spire Motorsports, but for the entire garage. At the same time, if Gabehart's defense proves correct, and no data was ever shared or used, the narrative flips completely. Suddenly, this becomes a case about overreach, about whether a top-tier organization is using legal pressure to control talent movement and protect its dominance. Either way, the outcome of this case won't just decide one man's future. It could redefine how teams handle contracts, data security, and employee transitions across NASCAR. Spire Motorsports, however, was largely excluded from expedited discovery. The judge ruled their situation will proceed under standard legal timelines, not the accelerated process. And that means this fight is far from over.